Raw from the Enterprise Center in St. Louis, Missouri. Coming off the reunion of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn on SmackDown, the two come out together and are arm in arm together, and they're chanting for Sami. Then they chant for KO, and Sami apologizes for how he approached this whole thing with Owens over the last couple of months, making it sound like a business transaction when we always just needed one another because we are brothers. Owens says, "I was just so frustrated because I've been your biggest fan for 20 years. Going back to when we fought XS and Sexy Eddie in CZW in a four-way match that had the world on notice for Montreal wrestling." He did all of this in this promo.
I didn't expect so much Sexy Eddie talk tonight.
Well, it's top of mind. And it was frustrating for Owens to see Zayn under the thumb of Roman Reigns, knowing that Sami was better than all of the Bloodline, and the fans knew it too. And it's time for us to take the whole group down together. And Sami says, "Well, you know what's next?" And over they look, and look at that sign, just hovering above them as a reminder. The Usos come out and call Owens and Zayn backstabbers. Zayn says, "Jay, you dream of backstabbing Roman Reigns." Jimmy says nothing is going to happen at WrestleMania, but Owens lays out the challenge, and Jimmy turns them down. He was like Leon Edwards on Saturday night when they asked him about fighting Colby Covington. But you know what? Much like Colby's going to get that next title fight, so are Owens and Zayn. And Jay takes the microphone and says, "Wait a minute, this could be our chance to put these two in the dirt." And he accepts on behalf of the team, and they get into a brawl where Jimmy saves his brother from a haluva kick, and then as the Usos grab chairs, on the screen, Roman, Solo Sikoa, and Paul Heyman arrive, and that concludes our segment, and the much-expected tag title match is now official for WrestleMania.
Yeah. So we had wondered when they would make it official, and they really didn't waste any time, giving us ample time to have these graphics and to just, officially recognize that a match will be taking place. So we've got about 3 more episodes of TV to go. So we'll see if they can heat this thing up any more than it already has been heated up. But I thought a really good opening segment tonight, that provided a significant chapter in the story, really putting equal weight during WrestleMania season on both Raw and SmackDown. You have to really follow both shows in order to really keep up with the storyline. And maybe that calls to the success of this story and how hot it is in being able to attract people across TV channels. I like the logic of the Usos, why they would accept a match suddenly from a team that hasn't teamed up before. There's no ranking system in the WWE, and I suppose Adam Pearce is just like, all right, that sounds good. You guys are needle movers, and you don't even need to win a tag team match together, whatever. I like that Jay still refers to Sami as a backstabber, and I really feel like you could still take Jay's perspective, and you can see that Jay still believes Sami is the bad guy in all of this. He's the guy who turned on his family that accepted him. So I think it keeps that element of sympathy for Jay, even though he's a full-on heel now. And I think it's something that, will be very useful for the Usos come after WrestleMania, when you might want to flirt continuously with their babyface turn.
There's so much to do down the road between Sami and Jay. And ultimately, the two of them one day teaming together, I think, is still something that you could eventually get to. Like, they have left it that here is Jay. That, I mean, what is his big flaw? That he's been loyal to his blood. Like, that is, it is not this guy who has, they're essentially, they've been in the same positions of, friends versus or enemies attacking your family. Bloodline is in the locker room, and the Usos join in, and Reigns says, "Man, you guys took a beating out there." And Jimmy looks at Roman with this disgust, and he said, "Nothing hurts more than being torn from my brother and having to answer for it." And he just lets it sink that we're all supposed to believe he's talking about the ultimatum that Roman had put, that he was going to blame Jimmy. And then, as it's all tense, Jimmy says, "I'll never forgive Sami Zayn for that." Great.
It was awesome, especially watching Paul Heyman in the background.
He's so good in the background.
Tense until Jimmy reveals that he's talking about Sami, and just the relief on Paul Heyman's face as soon as he said Sami Zayn. Everybody in this room, I thought, played this really, really well.
And Reigns dismisses everyone except for Jay. And we go to commercial, And for 3 minutes, they just sat there awkwardly silent. And we come back from break, and Reigns tells Jay, "It's been a minute. I haven't heard from you. I had to beg Jimmy for answers, and now you're back, and you're making decisions? Well, in order to make decisions, you have to be part of the bloodline. Are you still family?" And Jay says, "I'm still with you. I'm bloodline." And Reigns says, "I hope so. That's all I needed to hear." And then he pauses and he tells Jay, "I love you." And Jay is looking off screen, and there's Heyman that I guess has just been lurking here the whole time. And Jay leaves, and Heyman asks Reigns if he found out the answers he was seeking, and Reigns confirms that he has.
So now how did you interpret that?
This was like a total replication of the same segment he did with Sami Zayn, and Paul asking him after, "Did you get the answers that you were seeking?" And he said, "I did." And he goes back to what he looked into his eyes and what he saw. So I saw this as sort of mirroring when he saw in Sami Zayn and the distrust began. So I take this to be a pretty significant development here that we're, and I mean, they pretty much call it out in the end. This main event, it is the title's at stake, but his family is also at stake here, that they will crumble without these titles that unify them.
Yeah. I think they've done a great job, in sowing the seeds for potential Usos defection. And that's what I've been loving about this entire Bloodline story. I mean, it's good, man. WWE put together this big hour-plus compilation of all the scenes, all the significant scenes, at least, in this entire Bloodline thing, starting from Roman's return to, the Jey Uso feud to everything up until today. So it's almost, I mean, it really is like a movie that they've, amassed at this point. But what I love about it is that you constantly get these little resolutions, but they always springboard into another mystery, another sort of unresolved thing that you're just waiting to see up next. First, it was Jay and Roman. Then it was Sami and the Bloodline. Then it was Sami and Kevin. Now they're together, but now we still have more questions. And the question of the day at this point is, are the Usos with the Bloodline? Are the Usos fully on board with Roman? And I thought tonight's episode did a great job of making the audience feel that dissent.
Yeah, I thought they really pushed that button hard, especially in the final segment and throughout. This was a show that had this thread throughout the whole show of the Bloodline, rather than being contained to a individual segment or two.